Okay, so as we go down this list of players, I want you guys to leave your comments and let me know what player is the most surprising that the Green Bay Packers kept, and then also who is the most surprising player the Packers parted ways with. Leave your comments as we go through the Green Bay Packers, get some good and bad news that we're going to talk about in this video. Okay, so when we talk about good and bad news, okay, so the Green Bay Packers, there are some names that the Green Bay Packers left off on this list that you can't help to be a little bit bummed out about. Guys that I was super excited about, guys that I thought, needed almost a revival of their career, that I thought the Green Bay Packers were going to bring the best out of those particular players, Isaiah Simmons being one of them. But let's go through this list. So the good news that the Green Bay Packers have is that they are parting ways with some players that are really good athletes and could be potentially great players on other teams. But the Packers have a lot of talent on this roster, and they just didn't make the cut. And take heart in that. That's a really good thing for the Green Bay Packer organization to know that they've got a lot of talent from top to bottom. Now, who are they going to sign when it comes to practice squad? All those guys. It would be great to get a lot of these players back on practice squad. Okay, so let's talk about the quarterbacks. Okay, so quarterbacks, not a surprise there. The Green Bay Packers keeping Jordan Love, and they're keeping Malik Willis. They're parting ways with Sean Clifford and Elgersma. Shout out to Elgersma, who looked incredibly good. And he's probably going to get snagged by another team because this is a really good backup to have for somebody out there. He showed some arm strength throughout training camp. He showed some arm strength throughout the preseason. Elgersma looked really good. He looked better than Sean Clifford did. I really hope the Packers can somehow retain him to the practice squad. I don't see that happening. Running backs, Packers are keeping Josh Jacobs. Not a shock there. Chris Brooks, Emmanuel Wilson. Neither of those, all those guys that we mentioned are not shocks. Emmanuel Wilson, preseason game number 2, really fell off, and then had some mistakes, that fumble, and then the Packers then picked up the pieces, moved on from that, and then parted ways with Amir Johnson, who I thought had a very good showing. He looked incredibly well, and you could have made the argument that he could have gotten a roster position over either Emmanuel Wilson or Chris Brooks, because Amir Johnson looked super good. He was running probably the best of anybody out there for the Packers running backs this preseason. Okay, so then you talk about the wide receivers out there. You've got Romeo Dobbs making the cut, Matthew Golden, Malik Heath. We'll talk about that here in a second. Malik Heath, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams. Obviously, I'm excited to see what Savion Williams can do. But the Packers, cut ways with Shepard, McCole Hardman. A little shocked that they parted ways with Hardman over Malik Heath, just for the simple fact of Hardman being more of the special teams guy for the Packers out there. That one kind of shocked me a little bit, but in the same sense didn't. But Malik Heath, McCole Hardman, that was, if I were to split hairs with the wide receiving keep and cut list, that would have been who maybe I would have leaned more towards Hardman, given special teams only. And then you've got the Packers keeping 4 tight ends. A little surprising there, but also at the same sense not, because we started catching wind that the Packers were going to potentially keep 4 tight ends on this roster: Tucker Kraft, Fitzpatrick, Musgrave, and Sims. A little surprised there, because I think we could have borrowed from another position and maybe had them make the roster. So let's talk about so the Packers keeping Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, Donovan Jennings, and Kennard, who they just traded for. None of those guys are shocks that they're on the Packers roster here. To note, Jacob Monk is going to be entering the IR, designated to return. list. John Williams is the unable to perform. We talked about him in a previous video as well. Nobody quite knows what, when his timetable to return is. Okay, so they released some guys. Kadeem Tolfert, was one of those guys that they parted ways with that I really like. I like the potential in Kadeem Tolfert. Maybe they can keep him as a practice squad guy if he's not snagged by another team. I love his size. I love the potential there. He's still showing a little bit too much rawness there for the Packers' liking. Then you've got Rashawn Gary, a keeper, Lucas Van Ness, Bretton Cox, who looked fantastic and continues to look fantastic. I'm been big on this dude since he's signed with the Packers. Kingsley Ignegbari has looked really good as well. And Sorrell, who were, of course, really big on, unable to perform. Reserve is Colin Oliver. And then some cuts were Aaron Mosby and Alexander. Mosby was one of those guys that the Packers, he's good. If they can somehow keep him again on the practice squad, that would be amazing. But I think Mosby might get snagged by another team there. So it's a bittersweet thing to see some of this talent leave Green Bay, and probably leave for good when we start mentioning a couple of the names that we just mentioned. But that just shows how good this Packer roster is and how tough it is to make this team. Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Brinson, Carl Brooks, who's looked super good, Wooden, and Stackhouse. Some cuts were Esther and O'Malley. No surprises there whatsoever. Edrin Cooper, Keep, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, who's looked absolutely amazing. Okay, so if I had to pick a roster's position here where I'm like, man, this kind of doesn't make sense. I wish we would have kept another linebacker, corner maybe as well. Isaiah Simmons and Welch. Welch looked good. You can make Welch looked fantastic this offseason. So Isaiah Simmons showed a lot of inconsistency. He looked confused at times. Maybe that's just since he's been in the league, he's played multiple positions. So Isaiah Simmons is one of those guys where it's like, man, that would have been great to have this almost this diamond in the rough type of player. Just a crazy freak athlete, just has not been able to translate into the NFL, which has been frustrating. I wish him all the best, but let's talk corners a sec. You've got Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, Carrington Valentine, Hayden, who showed very well in camp preseason. Bo Melton, who we're all excited to see out there, and kept seventh round draft pick Micah Robinson. We cut ties with Corey Ballantyne, a guy that we brought back into Green Bay. And here's the big surprise for me is Kalen King. Kalen King, I'm not there in practice. I'm not watching what the coaches are seeing with King. But if it were me, I would have probably kept Isaiah Simmons and Kalen King on this roster. Maybe not kept 4 tight ends. That's just me speaking. I want you guys to leave your comments. Let me know your thoughts there. Xavier McKinney and Kalen King, maybe we can keep him to the practice squad. Maybe we can, utilize him throughout the season. Hopefully we don't have injuries, but it's a long season. So it's bound to happen. We're already stacked with injuries as it sits right now. Okay. So Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Zane Anderson, Javon Bullard, and Katan Oladapo, who's looked amazing, absolutely amazing. I'm excited about Oladapo. I'm excited about what this dude's going to do. Same thing with Tyron Hopper. Both those guys have looked super good out there for the Packers. So I'm excited to see if they're able to really put in some time this year, get some playing time, and look the part. Injured reserve is Omar Brown. Jalen Simpson, a guy that we brought in who, I thought looked good. He had 2 tackles. He had a pass break up last preseason game. But, maybe too little too late. The Packers brought him in late. And I think the guy, if we can keep him on our practice squad, maybe this is somebody that the Packers could bring up at some point in time there as well. Hopefully you don't have injuries again. We keep talking about that, and you've got your specials there. Brendan McManus is just a beast. Hopefully he continues to. So good news and bad news. The Packers, they've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of really good guys out there. I want you guys to leave your comments, though. Let me know your surprise cuts and keeps. And as always, go Pack Go.